Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to July. We took last Friday off for the 4th of July holiday, but we're back. Marty Keller here in Sacramento with John Donovan in Oceanside, and our regular guest, sidekick, Dan Gutierrez, also here in Sacramento. I'd like to welcome everybody. We're happy to have Dan back. Dan's got, as always, has something that he wants to share with us. And we haven't heard this. I've heard a little bit from Dan before, but it's always something new. So before I turn it over to you, Dan, I'm just going to touch base with John. How you doing down there in Southern California?
I'm doing well. So muggy, like 73 degrees and muggy. Anyway, you can see I'm dressed for the environment. So,
well, it's good to reconnect with you, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, Dan, you got some couple things you'd like to share with us today.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I guess a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to John on the phone, and I was talking about how there were some things that I couldn't, when I'm facilitating that I shy away from, and that's when somebody was talking, that they have PTSD, and because I thought that was far beyond my capabilities. And then John pointed out that I have PTSD. And I started crying. So for the last week or so, when I get when the moment's right, thought comes to my mind, I just say, I have PTSD. And I hope you can see what's happening. And so I've been trying to stay with it. So sometimes I say it to myself 10 times. And I have PTSD. I have PTSD.
Yeah.
I have PTSD.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do this for the next half hour and it would just be the same reaction. For those of you who watched Young Frankenstein, when somebody says Frau Brucher and the horses rear up, that's what happens to me every time I say I have PTSD. And at first, I had this huge resistance. Resistance, fear, lack of experience, lack of it's new. But I stuck with it. I keep saying it, and it generates this reaction or this energy inside of me. And at first, the feeling I was having, I labeled dangerous. Don't do that. And it's like, just stop the labeling. Just continue to do what I'm doing. And the resistance goes away because after I experience after the experience, I feel peaceful. My anxiety level is down about 2 or 3 notches, and so that's the feeling that I get. The second part, you know, where I find myself in the moment, being accountable for it. I have PTSD. I can't say it enough, and it's just, it happens. It's happening now. I want to talk about what that is, what's happening. And I mean, I can create all kinds of scenarios why and what this is, and but that takes me out of it. There's something there that when I say I have PTSD, it just, I mean, like, I look back at my life and it's a classic example of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-mm.
And I think having enough experience to know, to be able to tell myself that there's nothing wrong with me. This is an adaptation that a young child chose or selected out of whatever to get him through. And now it's a problem as an adult.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of Gabor Mate stuff, and I'm in a spot now where, you know, what he talks about, I understand. You know, not why the addiction, why the pain, and explains a lot of the behavior. So I've concluded that what I'm experiencing now is I'm reconnecting with myself, is what's happening. I'm the older brother I never had, and I'm having this conversation with myself, and I'm being heard by myself. And I'm giving myself what I didn't get.
Yes.
And the resistance that shows up, not keeps, but shows up, is I don't know. I'm concluding that it's my survival mechanism trying to keep me safe, thinking that not experiencing this is dangerous. I'm gonna die. And it's just been given the wrong information. And I can see that how I'm feeling and what's happening is natural. This is how I heal. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Gabriel Mate says that it's not the event that's traumatic. It's the aftermath of the event when there's no either mirroring or attachment, and it's post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's what happens after the event that is needs attention and healing. Yeah, and you if you don't identify where you're at, there's the direction of where you want to go is vague or not there. As soon as you identify specifically where you're at, I'm wounded, I have complicated post-traumatic stress disorder, that's the beginning of the end of whatever you've identified. I don't know if I told Daniel at the time, but I went to visit a shaman that was in the United States from New Zealand, and he was talking about one of the people he was working with who had muscular dystrophy. And they were talking back and forth that the hardest part of that healing was to get the woman to just say she had muscular dystrophy, because she wanted to deny it. She wanted not to have it. She wanted to be good, or she wanted to be healthy. And in the non-acceptance of where you are, the direction of where you want to go is non-existent. So they talked about how difficult it was for him to get her just simply to admit that she had muscular dystrophy. And then she talked about when she did, that gave her a direction, that gave her something to be proactive about. And they were talking about the healing that came from the awareness that and the acceptance, getting out of denial, getting out of avoidant behavior, into the feeling, into the reality of where you find yourself. An example I have of that is I lived my whole life with this learning disorder of dyslexia, and I had no idea. So my rational mind said, there's something wrong with me. I'm not like other people. I'm on the wrong planet. All these things came to me. And then when I discovered that I had dyslexia, my whole life made sense. Didn't make it less painful, but it made sense why I did the things I did, how I did the things I did, and how people responded to me not knowing that I had this disorder, learning disorder, namely dyslexia. And then once I got it, that I had it, I was able to mitigate it. I was able to take steps to nurture myself. When I discovered I'm from my family of origin was dysfunctional, I was traumatized as a child, I have PTSD. And I got early in my recovery that my post-traumatic stress syndrome wasn't from the service, because I was in the service for 4 years. And in Vietnam, my post-traumatic stress was not from that, it was from my childhood. It was from my being in what I would classify as a war zone in my own home, with my father being a violent batterer and my mother being what I say a flaming codependent, and this trauma that I went through as a child. So yeah. You mentioned resistance. I didn't want to admit that I had a learning disorder. because people had asked me before, oh, you got a learning disorder. How did, and I go, no, 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 I don't have a learning disorder. And then once I accepted, there was relief. You talked about, again, resistance. And one of the things I know is that when I identify something I'm in resistance to, there's something in that for me. There's a healing in that for me, with a dropping of the resistance to whatever's coming at me, or the idea or awareness of where I find myself. So that resistance has now become a marker for an opportunity to heal. Yeah. So if you guys want to add anything.
Well, I noticed that for me, the denial that anything happened to me, how it shows up for me is like is I always take control of the situation. So it seems like I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I have the answers. So I'm not vulnerable to being exposed.
Yes.
And that's a symptom of it. A symptom of that. That's the adaptation.
Yes.
And arrogance, defensiveness. Yeah. When it happens, from my experience here, is when it happens, it happens, and it couldn't happen any sooner than it did.
Right.
My process is I had to go through all this, learn what I learned along the way to lead me to that moment, to get me to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I've been holding on myself that there's something wrong with me.
Yep.
I have to do something external to make that go away.
Yeah.
Or so I don't feel like there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that explains drug the addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God.
Here again, I'm also just beginning to realize the internal level of that. It's this, it's shame, not good enough, and it's me that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then the realization is that it wasn't my shame, and I'm not good enough. I didn't choose that. That's part of what I was the environment that I lived in.
Yeah.
God, I'm 60 years old. God dang it.
Mhm.
Ah. There's a lot of this there's still a ton of this inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's just a ton of okay, it feels like that. It feels like this. But I'm not afraid of it anymore.
Mhm.
Um,
I'd like to say to the people watching this, and there may be somebody who is not familiar with intentional living, that everybody on this screen is a facilitator for intentional living, and that what you see is happening, that we're also doing this work. It's not like I've reached a point, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm going to help everybody because I'm the man. It's I still have stuff inside, and Marty and Daniel are my peer support. Where I go, they come, we use each other to heal, to talk about what's going on with us, away from the facilitator role, and that it's something that we do in our lives as we're teaching it. It's not something we think would be a good idea for a lot of people to do. It is my life, and I'm witnessing it being your life also, in this ongoing uncovering of family of origin dysfunction, and it can be real sophisticated in the way it hides from our own awareness. So
Well, I appreciate your jumping in and saying that, John, because I was thinking we need to create a little context for the newcomer.
Mm-hmm.
And let me take a shot at it, and then you guys
Okay.
join me if you're willing. But what we're working with here in the accountability practice is learning how to live authentically, and by that I mean not controlled by a traumatic little child who lives inside of me, unhealed from whatever it was that happened when I was in my infancy and my early youth, and even into adolescence.
Yes.
I had a chance this weekend with people from my family of origin to talk about trauma that happened to my younger brother in his adolescence. And so we're dealing with essentially a psychological defense mechanism that is powerful and it's healthy. It was designed to keep us safe from the effects of these traumas, the post-traumatic stresses. And the challenge that we have is it may have done that as it was happening, but it never had a chance to then become healed itself. Right. It was as if it put it into a reserve tank and anticipating some kind of healing activity that never came. And so for me, what happened is the defense just kept building on itself. In the absence of any intervention of grace and love and release and peace, I just kept feeling the world the same way. Even as my intellect developed, I never saw it because it became just an automatic part of my daily experience. And so over time, I would develop a way of being with the world and with myself that was not authentic. And but it was in alignment with this defense that I had. I remember about 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in the Landmark Forum, the successor to EST. And I'm sitting in a group of 200 people, and the forum leader is talking about how many people here feel like a phony or like a charlatan was the word he used. And I just had that arrow to the breastplate feeling, because it was true. That was the truth that I knew about myself, that I had never been able to articulate, or had never been, it was never ever presented to me before as a way of, maybe that's who I am. And to have the experience to say out loud in front of 200 people, I'm a charlatan, knowing that I wasn't the only one, was the first experience I had of being liberated from the defense mechanism, from the need to be a charlatan. It's like, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So John, and we've talked about this in many other podcasts, but over the course of the last 25, 30 years, John's developed this process that we call accountability, that this podcast comments on and shares about, to help us free ourselves of the impacts of this defense. And Dan, I'm going to just say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or you don't see it this way, but what you're sharing with us is just another revelation of the dimension of the defense that you hadn't seen about yourself until fairly recently. And that what you're sharing with us is the impact of just being able to tell the truth about it. So what we're doing here is working our own work, as John said, because it's my intention to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, and community. And I want to know all the elements within me, the psychodynamics, the spiritual dynamics that are saying no, so that I can invite them to consider a different possibility.
Yes.
So that's just some thoughts to help the newcomer maybe get what we're doing here. If you guys want to add anything, please jump in.
Give me a minute here to kind of orient to that. And Daniel, if you got anything on your mind, or
I know maybe a couple of months ago, I had a similar experience. I have a different word for a charlatan. It's called a wannabe.
mm-hmm.
And I had a similar experience of emotional release. I could just walk around, or in a moment, I could just say the word wannabe. And I mean, that's like the worst thing you can call me. Literally. And it's like, I am a wannabe. Jesus. But it's safe for me to say that now. It's safe for me to say I have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think that's where the truth, or not, you know, my truth, the truth that resonates with me, not society's, or what the truth should be. Yeah, and it's understanding that I've been the image that comes to mind is the Hoover Dam. I'm standing at the bottom trying to hold it back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank God we have a drought, because the water's not going to come over the top. But you know, it's still that's the resistance. It's like, oh my God. And here again, it's a learned behavior. Now that I've done this, I've learned that I don't have to resist. I don't have to push back. It's only resistance if I push. And at some point, now it becomes, I have the capacity to choose to not push, because I notice that I am. And resistance takes many forms. Denial, blame, fear,
Projection.
you know, anxiety, stress. I went to the doctor today, and the nurse lady, she took my blood pressure, but I didn't see what it was. So the whole morning, you know, it was 9 o'clock. I had to be there. So it's like, okay, don't drink any coffee. Don't you go there. Don't you? They're gonna take your blood pressure, and you know, he's gonna go, oh, Jesus Christ, it's high, Mr. Gutierrez. You know, we need to add some more medicine. Blah blah blah. And it's like, oh my God. So I'm creating stress around high blood pressure. I'm resisting the truth. You know, what happens if my blood pressure is okay? Well, I go to, my blood pressure is too high. That's my perspective. So I get there, and finally he comes in. First thing he says, he goes, "Wow, Mr. Gutierrez, your blood pressure is normal." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Your blood pressure is normal." And I go, "Tell me the numbers." And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Oh, good news, good news." And that's even here. That's at the doctor's office. My blood pressure is normal, which normally it's like 10 points higher when I'm at the doctor's office because I'm stressed. And I don't know.
I have this, go ahead.
I just, you know, it's like I learned something new, and all of a sudden I see it everywhere. Resistance is like, you know, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that, and we're going to do this. And it's like, and then I just find myself all, and it's like, you know, you don't got to do a goddamn thing. The world's not going to end if you don't do fucking nothing. Matter of fact, go do nothing. Go do nothing. Go watch TV for 2 hours. See if you can tolerate that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 2 hours later, the world didn't end. And I still managed to do what I think I have to do. So my value as a human being is based on what I do again. And it's like, oh, there it is again. I'm willing to entertain the notion that that's not true. How do I feel about that? I feel calm, I feel valued, and I feel loved at this point. And it's like, okay, maybe that's why your blood pressure's down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have this saying that I use a lot, and I'm coming to a deeper awareness of it as we speak, is that when I'm defending myself, I'm participating in my own oppression. And defending myself from what? From being seen as something other than perfect. I do this process called feedback, where well, I'll use the example of I'll use myself and I'll say, what do you see in me? What character defect do you see in me? And whatever they say, like, you're mean. Well, yeah, thank you. I know. Because I've owned that capacity to be mean. I've owned the fact that I was mean to the people I said I loved, my immediate family. I was mean. And that meanness was in alignment with the family of origin trauma. And when I owned the meanness, it lost its power. I didn't have to do it again. I could choose something else. I could choose kindness. I could choose curiosity. I could choose humor. I had choice. As long as I was in resistance to being perceived as mean, the meanness kept coming out, kept manifesting. In one of the groups I was in, I was talking about this, and one of the guys says, well, what do you see in me? And I was clear with him, okay, I'm about to say something that is, you're gonna like want to stand up on me. And the more you want to stand up on me, I would suggest to you, the more you're trying to hide that from yourself. And he says, okay, John, let me have it. And I said, okay, wannabe. And he just like, he just, oh shit, don't, oh my God. And he did, he felt like he wanted to stand up and punch me in the face. And he got it though, that was something that he was holding on himself, internally, hidden from his own awareness, that he was, again, the charlatan, the fake, the fraud. My word is fraud. I'm a fraud. If people find out I'm a fraud, then everything goes away. And that is in alignment with my childhood trauma, because I did give myself up. I did compromise myself. And this wasn't a conscious thing. It was a survival mechanism to survive my childhood, and not be ostracized or abandoned or punished. So I complied, which wasn't me, which is actually fake, albeit in alignment with what was happening in my childhood. And then I was holding that in my subconscious, that I betrayed myself. And it became subconscious, and it still had motivating factors in my decision, which ended up in, well, arrogant, entitled, mean, controlling, and needy. And when I owned these things, and there's a plethora of other things that I've owned, they lost their power. So somebody could say, John, you're a liar. And well, yeah, I've lied, and I'm working on that. I'm aware of that. And I see it as part of what happened to me in my childhood. It was a defense mechanism, and it is my intent to be honest. Where before, if somebody said, John, you're a liar, I would like stand up on them. It's like, who you think you're talking to, and then try to defend that, knowing at some deep, deep level that it was absolutely true. Just like that lady that had multiple sclerosis, or what did I say? Yeah. Until she owned that that's where she's at, she had no direction for healing or any alternative. Once I owned I'm mean, I had alternatives. I had choice. I was at choice at that moment. So, wow.
Again, for the newcomer, one of the things that we fundamentally commit ourselves to when we do this practice is the agreement that there's nothing wrong in ourselves, that the thing that we don't want to share, I'm a charlatan, I'm a wannabe, I'm a fraud, whatever it is, I'm a liar. There's nothing wrong with being a fraud, a charlatan, or a liar, but it may not serve us in our lives anymore. And so the work here is not to make that wrong, or I shouldn't have been, but more to be able to say, yeah, that's how my defense worked. I had to do it. In my family of origin, I had to pretend in order to survive. And it wasn't a conscious decision. I didn't sit down with my therapist at age 4 and have this conversation about what are the best ways to do this. I just reacted. And we all did. We just reacted to the specific circumstances in which we found ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. So when we are able to look at these things about ourselves that we initially made, I love that comment, that term, John, stand up on, that we're defending or we're resisting, that can now, when we do this practice, that's just information. That's information about ourselves that we can now take into account And again, as John was saying, if that resonates in me emotionally, I'm a charlatan and I feel something about it, then that body feeling is telling me this is true, this is accurate. And in that feeling, this is our practice, in that feeling of the actual truth, when my words align with my feeling, so there's no resistance inside me anymore, then I'm in this place of possibility, where I'm no longer stuck in this hidden psychodynamic or this hidden prison. And I now have the capability of making a different choice. And so that's what we get to do here. And as the truth is that we are working on a dynamic that's not only been around for years and years and years. Dan says he's 60, I'm going to be 70 this year. It takes time, and it takes loving patience with ourselves, because that my experience is the defense mechanism actually has not changed one whit in the 10 years that I've been doing this work. What's changed is my conscious relationship to it.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, there's that defense mechanism. It's like, okay, what do I want? And sometimes, as we've shared here before, sometimes I want to feel a victim, or I want to feel gnarly, or I want to feel like a wannabe. It's like, I've learned now that it doesn't matter. What matters is being present with whatever's presenting itself and being willing to just be there. And then the second thing is that because we do this work together, it's also being willing to share it with other people, being willing to tell the truth out loud to not just my brothers on this podcast, but anybody in any group that I'm working with. I had the opportunity this weekend, as I said, to be with Family of Origin, and I had a really meaningful and tender opportunity to be with my brother who's 10 years younger than me, and to really talk about how this experience was for him and our family. And I was just utterly moved because he was willing to tell me stuff I've never heard him tell me before. And I think in part that was because I told him stuff about myself without blame or judgment, and maybe he felt safe to do that. I don't know, I didn't ask him, but there's something about this practice when we commit that there's nothing wrong, when I could convey that to my brother, that whatever he tells me, I think he's a super guy. And I told him that. Then I can create genuine love and connection, which is all I really want in my life.
Yeah. I would like to add to, there's nothing wrong in as far as blame and judgment. My avoidant behaviors, meanness, arrogance, did create pain, did create separation, did create isolation. It did all that. But then when I couched it as wrong, I lost the opportunity to move through it, to heal it. And in that resistance to the, I don't want to be wrong, it kept the trauma in my body, which again expressed in arrogant, entitled, mean, controlling, and needy. Yeah, no blame, no judgment. And it hurt. Yep. It's not wrong. And I was in pain, and I was feeling isolation, and I impacted the people around me in a damaging, destructive way. Absolutely true. That's true also. Yeah.
Yeah, you've said it on this podcast before rather succinctly that there's nothing wrong, and it hurts.
And it hurts.
And it has impact.
And it has impact.
Literally.
Right.
I didn't watch myself. I watched someone else ask me a simple question, and the reaction is, I go straight to, what do you think, I'm stupid? or you don't think I've considered that? And it's like, whoa, what the hell? Where'd that come from? And it's like, oh shit, it's out there. There's fuck. All I had to say was, no, I'm not going to do that. Versus, what, you think I'm dumb? You don't think I thought of that? And that's the manifestation of the fear of being exposed. If I could be a master of all things, I will have a solid attachment connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally feel that the truth. My attachment bond with my mother and my father was based on what I did, who I needed to be, who I thought I needed to be. And I say that now, and it's like, you know, I probably had that. I probably had a lot of trial and error before I came to that conclusion. I hit on that. If I was this model little boy, I would stay attached. That's an adult explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a thought, that's a feeling. That resonates inside of me. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a lot coming forward here. Yeah, you can't be a wannabe. That's the worst thing you can be, fucking Dan. Woo! You call me a wannabe, and there's going to be a serious argument.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say before you got this information.
Whoops. Did he drop out?
So as you can tell, we lost John. There was a technical difficulty, so Dan and I are going to wrap this up together. And John will be back next week, I promise.
Cool.
So any concluding thoughts, Dan, as we come to the top of the hour here?
Yeah, I've had this intention. I intend to create a world of acceptance, compassion, connection, and wisdom. And my vision of what that was going to look like didn't include what I shared and I've been experiencing. And I like what's happening. It's very liberating going through this process. And yeah, I want more of this. No blame and no judgment. I want more of this feeling of connecting with myself, being okay with who I am. And I've said it before, I coming to a greater understanding that I'm not the problem. I'm okay the way I am with my family of origin. That self-acceptance is new and it feels good. And I'm excited about what the future holds for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, I always love having you on the podcast. Well, I always love having Dan on the podcast, but he just disappeared. And so I don't know, maybe there's another earthquake. Had the experience of the earthquake up in the Central Mountains earlier this week, yesterday actually. And so now Dan's back. And so who knows?
There he is.
So you do that one more time, I'm not letting you back in.
I don't know what happened. I'm going to plead ignorance.
With the best of us.
I didn't do it. Nobody saw it. Can't prove anything.
Exactly.
Bart Simpson.
Well, I was starting to say before you did your Wizard of Oz disappearing act there that I always like having you on the podcast. I appreciate your diligence in uncovering the internal dynamics and finding a way to articulate what's going on so that other people can appreciate that they can check it out for themselves. That's really critical. So I appreciate that. And we didn't even get to the thing I wanted us to talk about, which is the idea as we do the accountability tree of asking people who are working through their process to call up the feeling that they want to have and not just name it as part of working through the feeling energies of the accountability practice. So let's do that next time.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate I appreciate the space, so I can have my experience witnessed and validated, which is I think having a safe and a trusting environment, which you and John in this podcast afford me, allows me to do some of this difficult work. And so for anybody who's a newcomer, we have a safe spot to do that. And I don't know if you announced the fact that we have.
No, but I will before we wrap it up.
Yeah. I'm coming to the realization for myself is that the meeting is the environment where I can learn to trust other people, so I can be vulnerable and share my experience. And it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I've said on the podcast many times, but I'll say it again. I think that the group process is one of the most brilliant things that whoever invented this stuff came up with. Probably goes all the way back to tribal humanity when we sat around in campfires and we worked stuff through. So it's a way to, in this particular process, it's a way for us to not only be witnessed in the truth and rawness of our own process, but also to reciprocate and witness the others who are bringing their work, their fears, their heart's desires to manifest the life that they want to all of us. And it's my belief that as we continue to do this work over time, that this healing energy will become available to more and more people, and it can be a major process to shift the evolutionary trajectory that human beings are on, that the universe is on through us. So I invite anybody who would like to explore this process to join one of our groups. We have meetings on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you are, what time you are. There's a Monday night meeting that I facilitate at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Dan facilitates a men's meeting on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time. There's another accountability practice meeting Thursday nights. I participate in it. It's facilitated by our colleague Rodney. Also 6:30 Pacific time, and then John facilitates a meeting Saturday mornings, 8:30 Pacific time. The meetings run a couple hours. I think John's meeting runs 90 minutes, but the other meetings run a couple hours so that all participants have a chance to work through whatever might be on his or her mind. Information on how to find out about the Zoom invitations, the Zoom addresses can be had by emailing me or John, and our email addresses will be at the end of this podcast. So please feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to send you an invite to the meeting of your choice. So Dan, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.